I'm Tree Bernstein, author of The Last Tourist in Bali, a book of short stories with watercolors published by Back Soon Books. The Boulder Bookstore asked me to speak to you this way because we can't meet in person for a little while. So I thought I'd start with the preface, since that sets the stage for what happens next. In 2002, at the age of 50, I left my home in Colorado and moved to the island of Bali. A couple of months after settling in the village of Kali Bukbuk in the north, an Islamic group set off bombs in Kuta, a nightclub district in the south, killing more than 200 tourists and Indonesians. By the end of the month, nearly all the tourists had left the island. I decided to stay on, to take Indonesian lessons and to learn the customs of this mysterious emerald green island. I learned that Balinese named their children according to birth order. The firstborn is Wayan, then Made, Komang, and Kutut. The names translate as first, second, third, and fourth child. Names do not indicate gender. If there are more than 4 children, the 5th child is called Wayan Balik, or Wayan again. Nicknames are sometimes given, but family names are not. I met a lot of Wayans. That was the year I did as I pleased. I painted in the morning and swam in the ocean before lunch. I wrote stories that arrived as easily as the rain. They might begin with homestay gossip or village folklore. In Bali, the spirit world and imagination walk the same path. In my recollection now, 18 years later, 2002 seems so long ago, a quaint, almost old-fashioned time. We had cell phones, sure, but people weren't so involved with them. You had to go to an internet cafe to check email. Social media was unknown. I lived a couple of kilometers from the village at a guest house bungalow in a rice field that overlooked the Bali Sea. So much beauty ringing the island with a sleeping volcano at her heart. One day near the base of Mount Agung, that very volcano, I saw a girl in a bright sarong balance a bucket of water on her head as she came over the hill. The rising sun suddenly illuminated the red plastic bucket. For an instant, the water turned into an animated cutout, a silhouette like shadow puppet that mimicked the sway of the girl's hips. She stepped out of the light into the shadow. The girl walked on. So these stories were written the year I lived in Bali, and I painted and I wrote, and I just wanted to see what would happen with that kind of time to do as I pleased. Some have asked me if this is a memoir, if these stories are thinly disguised me. But no, there is a character named Ray who is an artist who paints in watercolor, and we do share certain sensibilities. But what happened is really a work of imagination. The descriptions, though, were what I observed. For instance, I took Indonesian lessons from a teacher who at one point asked me for 1,000,000 rupiah. Well, I said no, and that was that. But I wondered, what would he need with 1,000,000 rupiah? And that was the beginning of the story, No Problem, about a man with a gambling debt. Another story was basically observed from my village bungalow, that of Asia, the teak smuggler. I watched the whole operation come down, and I invented the relationship between the 2 women. We had a passing kind of hello and a few words, but I don't think she knew that she was part of my story. I thought I'd read for you a part of the middle of a story called 2 Wives. It's about an Australian a Balinese couple. The man lives in Bali and she lives with the kids in Australia most of the time, but She comes to Bali once a year over the holidays, and her family follows. And this is in the middle of the story. Their days took on the burnished patina of practice, ennui. The family collectively adopted a schedule that was as predictable as the afternoon rain. Raj would hurry away to work, while the others spent the mornings by the pool, sometimes until tea. Afterwards, the adults played three-handed hearts and alternately praised or damned the weather, while the children waged war games in separate computers on separate rooms. Then it would be time for dinner with Raj at the sandbar, while the sunset painted the sea. They amused themselves with slight criticisms of what couldn't be bought in Bali but were common in Australia. Mr. Sweeney would order a whiskey neat at dinner, which would launch a new, loquacious Mr. Sweeney, clearly absent when he was in the presence of women and children. Tonight, the subject was a favorite one: superior, intelligent Western mind versus primitive, superstitious Indonesian mind. If the Dutch had not come to Bali, we would still be an island of bananas and coconuts, declared Mr. Sweeney. When I came here in 1968, the country was in ruins. Poverty, crime, corruption, say what you will about Suharto and his greedy family. They brought the country up, gave people a chance at the middle-class dream. Now it's all gone to shite. The same 6 families run the show. He paused to take a long pull on his whiskey, thus refueled, began again. This country has a bounty of riches, more than Australia could ever wish for. He cast a Calvinist eye at Raj. But is it managed properly? Can anyone even do a bit of bloody business in this bloody country? Impossible. Maddening. Indonesians drive without their lights on to save electricity. They turn off their refrigerators at night for the same reason, and meat spoils. Mr. Sweeney's blood pressure escalated. He ordered another drink. Raj expected this part of the sermon. It was a familiar script. Although not usually a drinking man, he called for a beer anyway and let the gentle beer buzz hum between his ears as he focused his eyes on the dimming sky with his attention far, far away. Mr. Sweeney droned on. Well, that's a little taste of The Last Tourist in Bali. If you're interested, you can purchase it at Boulder Books. You can even order it online at Boulder Books through bookshop.org. And I hope to see you in person one fine day. Thank you, and thank you, Boulder Books.